Ooh, what's going on, GameLeap? This is the Jizz, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the champions who have changed in terms of win rate the most since 12.4 hit the Rift. Now, it's only been out for a couple of days, but these champions who have been buffed or nerfed have really changed a lot in terms of their win rates, so we're going to figure out how much some of these champions have improved or gotten worse since 12.4 hit the Rift.
Oh yeah, very nice.
Oh, what's up, GameLeap? I was just using the Weed Whacker trimmer from Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, and let me tell you, this, along with the other 3 products I'm about to show you, have been a game changer for me in terms of confidence, belief, because not only are my nostrils and ear cavities clean, but also my nutsack, because I've been using the lawnmower trimmer from Manscaped, which is waterproof, and it reduces shaving accidents because it's got skin-safe technology inside of it. But not only that, you get the Manscaped Ball Deodorant and also the Manscaped Toner. These 2 products polish off the nuts and they make them smell beautiful. And what this performance package does is it makes you feel great, because performing on the Rift starts with performing off the Rift, especially in the downstairs region. So if you guys want all the confidence in the world before you head on to Summoner's Rift, make sure you check out the Manscaped links down below, and you can get 20% off your order and free shipping by using code JIZZ. That's JIZZ at checkout, so check out those links down below, and let's get into the video. So we're going to start with the champions who got buffed in 12.4 and talk about how their win rates have changed in the last couple of days, and there are 11 champions to talk about here. So number 11, the champion whose win rate has actually declined a little bit despite getting buffed, this is Ashe. And the 12.4 buff that sees your ultimate travel faster after a couple of seconds, it's kinda nice, but remember the base speed initially is actually down. So this means that during the laning phase when your ultimates are going to be pretty short, it is just worse off, even though Riot called it a buff. And this is why Ashe's win rate at all levels of play has actually gone down a tiny bit. So what I'm saying is the buff, it was pretty placebo and doesn't really mean anything. Ashe is still exactly the same champion. Now ahead of Ashe, we have to talk about Rumble. And Rumble's win rate, thankfully because of the buff, has actually gone up. So in the top lane, his win rate has gone up 0.4%, and this is at all ranks. And higher reloads, I'm sure this would be higher. But the fact is, for top lane Rumble, because you've got more base armor now, and most enemy champions you go against in the top lane will be attack damage based, this is really useful because it means your early game, which is already strong, is even stronger, so hopefully you can get to the mid game and by that point you're already popping off and win more games. Now ahead of Rumble, we have Nami coming in, who is the only support to get buffed in 12.4, and her win rate as a result has gone up by 0.5% back to 51% overall. Now for Nami, the E revert, so the damage in your E, this has gone back to what it was, so this means that whoever you E is going to deal more damage. So on the attacking side of things, you're a bit scarier to play against in the bot lane, especially if you play Nami with the champion we have to talk about next, and this is Lucian. And Lucian's win rate, because his mana and his Q has gone down, his win rate has improved by 0.6%, and this is pretty big to be honest, because the buff wasn't the biggest in the world. Like, it's costing less mana to use your Q, but was mana an issue before? Maybe it was, and obviously it is across the board, because Lucian's win rate is now around 49%. Typically Lucian's win rate hovers around 47%, so this is telling us that he's in a very good position, and this buff for sure meant something. You're going to have less mana problems, so you can use more spells, and spells on Lucian that trigger your passive, they are essential. Now we're going to stay with the bot lane champions here and talk about Kalista coming in next, and you guys can see here that Kalista's win rate since the buff to her armor has gone up almost 1.2%. But the interesting stat here is actually her top lane win rate, which has improved by 2.5%, and in higher reloads this has done exactly the same thing, and the win rate for top lane Kalista in those higher echelons is around 53%. Because her base armor is now 24 and not 21, it makes her tankier, harder to kill, and makes her early game even scarier. So Kalista, to be honest, should get picked a heck of a lot more because of this buff. Also, just like a Mumu coming in next, and his win rate also has improved by 1.2% because the damage reduction in your E has been increased, and this has seen his win rate skyrocket to 52% overall. So if you guys can lock in a Mumu with Conqueror, honestly a really underrated champion, and even in high reloads where he might struggle, because it's pretty easy to predict what an Mumu wants to do, and it should be easy to punish his weak early game, but even at that level of play, Mumu's win rate is super high. So in 12.4 he is for sure one of the best junglers. But we're going to head back to the top lane here and talk about Set, who got buffed in terms of his HP per level. So at level 18, you're getting over 100 extra HP, and this is significant, and this is seen in the improvement in win rate going up almost 1.4% to 51% overall. And I know lots of players, especially in lower elos, hate playing against Set because his kit, well, it is kind of broken, I guess. And if we just think about the HP buff to him, this means that with Gore Drinker, the active, which is based on your missing health, you're going to be missing more HP now because you have more of it. So this means the active is going to heal you for even more. So it's a very nice patch for Set, and this is why his win rates have improved in pretty much every single role. Now we're going to head back to the bot lane here because we've got another AD carry to talk about, and this is Xayah. So what Riot have done in 12.4 is improved your critical strike damage in your E's blade caller. So when you pull back those feathers, your E, instead of dealing 150% crit, is going to deal 175%. This is a 25% increase, and this obviously means something because her win rate is improved by 1.5% because of this, and hopefully this means Xayah is going to be picked a heck of a lot more because she really has been out of favor, even though the lethality build might still be good. Lots of Xayah mains want to play Xayah like an attack speed crit based champion, so hopefully this is here to stay, and Xayah mains, let me know in the comments what you think of 12.4 Xayah. Now ahead of Xayah, we're going to head back to the top lane here and talk about Aatrox, whose win rate has gone up 2%. This is legit, and the reason for this is because Riot have buffed your Q sweet spot damage. So if you're a good Aatrox player and you know how to land your Qs, you can predict the enemy champion's movement, you're going to be rewarded more because this is dealing more damage, 10% in fact, and this has seen Aatrox's win rate across the board go up to almost 50%, which is a significant improvement. Now the top lane might still be a little bit tricky, especially against lots of fighters and bruisers you might struggle against, but surely there is going to be no Aatrox main complaining about this. It's a very nice buff, and we can see this in the win rate improvement, but Aatrox's win rate hasn't improved as much as the next champion who I'm super excited to talk about, because we don't really mention Neeko on this channel, because Riot never really buff or nerf her, and she hasn't really been broken for ages. Well, the tables have turned because Neeko in 12.4, her win rate has improved by over 3.1%, and that's because of the 3 buffs that Riot gave to her. So what they gave to Neeko was a smaller hitbox, so you're harder to hit, so you're not going to die as much, and they also gave your Q more damage, which you're going to max first, and also reduce your W's cooldown. That is huge, and Neeko in the mid lane, you can see this win rate 52.3%. It's one of the highest in the game. She's gone from pretty much forgotten about to being one of the most talked about champs in the game, and this pick rate, which is 2.29. Guys, let's get this up. This champion is hella good right now, so let's take advantage of these 12.4 buffs. But there is one champion who actually trumps Neeko in the win rate and improvement department, and this is Alawi. And to be honest, I was not expecting this because the buffs Riot gave to Alawi were these. So her win rate has gone up almost 4%, so Riot increase your base attack speed. Now base attack speed, don't get me wrong, it's important for popping your spirit, for wave clear and trading with the enemy champion, but Alawi is more of a spell casting champion rather than an auto attack based champion. Now even though they did buff your W as well, these on paper just don't look that impactful, but they have been obviously huge, and these buffs are the reason behind Alawi's current success in this patch, and her pick rate as well has gone up almost 1%. This is no joke, she has definitely improved a lot as a champion, so Alawi mains, let me know in the comments what you think of these buffs. Now we're going to move to the nerf champions here, guys, and talk about what's happened to these in terms of their win rate. So first of all, we're going to talk about Nunu, whose win rate has decreased by over 2.5%, and that's because you're healing for less from enemy champions when you Q, and you're also a lot squishier because of the HP nerfs. And it makes sense because if we think of the Set buff that saw his win rate improve dramatically, well, it's the same for Nunu. And then when we add the Q nerf on top of it, which is now scaling less off your AP and bonus HP, so it doesn't matter if you're going AP Nunu or if you're going tank Nunu, your Q is just going to be healing you for less against enemy champions, and this is obviously really important with Nunu's win rate decreasing by this much. But the funny thing is, overall, it's still just below 50%, so this champion is still way more than playable, but certainly these nerfs have definitely had a negative impact. Now ahead of Nunu, we have one of the most banned champions, particularly in high reloads at the moment, and she's pick banned in pro play. This is Zeri, and her win rate, because of all the changes Riot have introduced into 12.4, has gone down almost 2.4%, so her win rate overall is 49%, so it's still, you know, respectable, and you can definitely still play and win on Zeri, but obviously the high cooldowns and the nerf damage and going more to crit rather than building Trinity Force, Titanic Hydra, Runar's Hurricane, Riot are trying to take you away from that build, but to be honest, it's still pretty good, it's just not as good, and this is why Zeri's win rate has decreased. Now moving on to the next champion, whose win rate has decreased by over 1.5%, this is Dr. Mundo, but the funny thing is, his win rate is still 52%, are you kidding? 3 nerfs for this champion in terms of his attack damage, so his DPS, and also in terms of his ultimate's cooldown, which is now 110 seconds at each rank. Like, I'm pretty sure if these nerfs came into any other champion, they'd be dead. Like, they're just completely done, no one's gonna play them again. But because it's Mundo, this dude is one of the most forgiving champions in the game. Like, you can first time him and be useful, his kit's very easy. So his win rate being this high still just shows how good this champion not only was, but still is. Of course you can still pick him, but there is no getting away from the fact that he is a little bit weaker, which is represented in these stats. Now moving on, let's head to the mid lane here, guys, and talk about Qiyana, who got kind of a sizable nerf. Well, lots of people thought it was going to be sizable, but the thing is, this champion still deals so much damage, and if you can play her properly, so you can master her combos with Prowler's Claw, this champion is still pretty nuts, and this is why her win rate across the board has only gone down 0.8%, so it might be 48% overall, but even in higher reloads still it's ridiculously high because players on this champion, they are experts. They know how to get the most out of her kit, so even though you're losing 20% damage in a full combo from the passive nerf, it's still not the biggest deal in the world because you still hit like a truck, and this is why Qiyana's win rate hasn't really gone down that much as people expected. Now we've got two more champions to talk about, guys, who did get nerfed for this patch, and these are Blitzcrank and Veigar. And funnily enough, one of these champions, their win rates have actually improved since the changes that came into 12.4. But first of all, we're going to talk about Blitzcrank because his win rate has actually decreased, but only by 0.15%. Like the HP regen nerf, who cares about this? You land one pull, it's still going to be the same outcome for the enemy champions, and we're playing Blitzcrank not for sustain, we're playing Blitzcrank to catch out enemy champions and one-shot them. So sustain isn't really that big of a deal, and this is why Blitzcrank's win rate, look at this, it's 52.5% still, absolutely no worries. But the champion, guys, who has improved in terms of win rate, despite getting overall nerfed, I guess, this is Veigar. And his win rate, just like Blitzcrank's, is close to 53%. That's how meaningful these changes were. So what Riot did, they decreased your armor, which was really targeted for bot lane Veigar. So in terms of the mid lane iteration of Veigar, no one really cared about this unless you're against an attack damage champion, but you do well into these anyway, because your cage, most of these are often short range, so you're actually pretty scary to get close to. But then we also have to think about their E nerf, but the thing is, most Veigar mains are going to be maxing their E second, so by level 13, it will still be on the same 12-second cooldown, so in the early game for sure, you don't have this up as much, but in the early game, you're only going to be using one cage per fight per skirmish, so a bit like the Ashe buff, this is a very placebo change, and this is reflected in Veigar's stats so far in 12.4. So those were the 17 champions, guys, that the 200 years experience balance team decided to change in 12.4, and what's actually happened in the last couple of days with the data we have. So if you did enjoy this video and it gave you an insight into how these champions are performing, let us know by leaving a like down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and until tomorrow's daily season 12 upload, this has been Coach.